Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast, the podcast we bring you each and every week on the Dynamo Podcast Network. And today we're going to have a quick post-match reaction, Liverpool versus Man United. And joining me today I have Dylan Thompson, Ben Hogan and Jack Doy, avid fans of Liverpool and Man United. How are we doing, guys?
Not bad.
As good as can be.
Good.
Fairly bad after that game, yeah.
Yeah, good to hear it. It's going to be a fairly interesting match reaction, all right. Because who knows? What do we even say about it, really? I suppose the one thing we can say is, from a Liverpool point of view, the record is still intact on Anfield, and that, it's 3 clean sheets up front now on our trot, so which isn't such a bad thing, is it? Or is it? But yeah, Dylan, what was your overall view of the match?
It just wasn't great. Liverpool had 7 odd corners and constantly playing them in the air. No tall players really to attack them. Basically just we had them up better, the chances, but they're still all half chances really. And the only thing really keeping us in it at the end there was Alisson.
There's probably a shout there that Alisson was probably man of the match, to be honest, isn't there?
Yeah, easily.
Yeah.
And all the focus is on Hendo and Fabinho at the back, but when you think about it, really, we should probably be looking at the top 3, because they could barely even string together some proper chances where you're oh, they might score a goal here.
Yeah, I think there's been so much focus on the defense, and obviously losing Van Dijk and Matip and Gomez and these guys, that we've kind of lost our focus, really. Our defense really isn't letting us down that much. It's really our front line that just isn't coming up with the goods, really, when you think about it. And even we've had that excuse for a number of matches now, that we were missing Thiago, so there's not that much creativity in there. But we had Thiago for some of the last game, and we had Thiago for all of this game, and although he put some nice passes together and he controlled the midfield for huge portions of the game, still no end product.
He was throwing it out there at the start to try and get the ball, goes to play it in, and just fizzes out again. Every attack just seems to be kind of getting worse and worse as we get towards the goal, and then we make it into their box, it kind of just fizzes out.
Yeah, the one thing I noticed as well, as opposed to last season, is with last season there was I was saying to Ben earlier watching the game, there was a purpose to our play, in terms of, when we fizzed balls in, it was fizzed in with a purpose. There was lads there was end product. This year it seems to be there's a lot of hit and hope. There's a lot of hopeful stuff going into the box and stuff like that and all, and it's kind of weird. It's kind of I'll knock it in here and kind of see what happens, as opposed to focusing on it and saying, okay, I see Firmino there in the box, or I see Mane there in the box, I'm going to fizz it into that area there, and there's a purpose about it. There seems to be a lot of balls coming in that are short, going to the opposition, or they go too long, or
a lot of just sloppy goals and deflections on the way in.
Yeah,
that luck just happens to be on our side, that we're getting the goal in the end.
Yeah. And of course, I think in the end, looking at the chances that United had, you'd probably argue that United overall had the better chances in terms of scoring. Alisson was definitely on his game. Ben, what was your thoughts on the game?
Just first half wasn't too bad, I thought, but the second half was much more poor. I thought United grew into the game more, and in the first half, and most of the second half they're quite good.
Yeah, well, that's what's been happening with United when they've been playing away. They've had these sort of poor starts when they've been away, and had poor first halves, and then in the second half is when they've come back and they've beaten teams like 2-1 or 3-2, where they've come back into those games. So they always get stronger in the second half anyway. We know that from previous games. Jack, what was your thinking on United today, in terms of, obviously, you were coming to Liverpool, top of the table clash, chance to go 6 points ahead of us. But the game really flattered to deceive, really, didn't it?
As Ben said, it was Liverpool's game to win at the start, and it was a game to win in the second half. I think Bruno Fernandes keeps on shooting himself in the foot, always wanting to play every single game. He feels like it seems like he's tired recently. He's not getting those passes off properly. Just seems like he's not right. and I think he should have a couple of games out.
Yeah, he seems to struggle big time against we there's a pattern there against the top six.
Yeah,
He seems to really struggle against the top six because it's like as if when United play the top six, they play this counter-attacking style. And the way they play it is that the ball basically skips the midfield. Nothing goes into midfield, really. You're really
yeah,
playing out from the back. It's like you've nearly 6 defenders and 4 forwards. And the ball just gets hit to the back or hit to the front very quickly. You've got Martial, Rashford, Cavani, and whoever else, Pogba probably was up there today. So the ball hits them very quick at the front. So it kind of bypasses Bruno in terms of, his strength is obviously that he's a playmaker and a hell of a penalty taker as well, I might add. But he's the playmaker in there in midfield. So when you're in against games like that, where you're up against good teams who know how to pass and play and attack and put that high press on you, the midfield is taken out of it today. I mean, if you look at the midfield today, McTominay barely mentioned, these players are just not mentioned. You're just not in the game. You know what I mean? In terms of the result, I mean, would you have taken that result today going into the game, or were you nervous going into the game?
I think I was definitely nervous. I mean, out of the 2 games this season, this is the game we wanted to win, because when you think about it, at the end of the season, you're going to have all your players back. You're going to have Van Dijk, you're going to have Keita, you're going to have, all your players back from injury. And it was more our game to win through injuries than our next game against you. So we should have won this game. Yeah. If we should have gone out to win this game, it felt like we just held off for the draw, which is I'm happy with the draw, to be honest, but we should have won this game. We should have went out to win this game.
Yeah, what was your feeling when you seen the team selection? I mean, there was a lot of shocks there in terms of, like, I would have thought Boye would have been playing in terms of having that pace to track back in Mane and Salah, but yet he put Lindelof back in there again. And in fairness now, I mean, Liverpool didn't really play to that strength in terms of, I know Maguire had a shaky first half and we didn't expand on that really, Liverpool didn't, but we could have really put Maguire to the cosh because he was really, really nervous. But it was weird in the game, and about the 75th minute or 76th minute, Lindelof made a clearance. And I made the comment to Ben watching the match that it was the first time I heard Lindelof mentioned in the whole game. And that says a lot about how we were playing, that like we weren't playing through those channels. We weren't finding those channels to really expose those 2 guys. Dylan, what was your view on team selection today for Liverpool? I mean, how did you...
I don't know, I think I was talking about it with Ben earlier, and he didn't really agree with me when I said I think we should be kind of keeping what we were playing before. Like, we're throwing lads like Thiago in straight away, and he's fresh back from injury. I just think we should kind of keep it to the way we were playing 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, because that was kind of working for us, I think.
So you would have been thinking about keeping a Reece Williams or a Nat Phillips in defence with Fabinho, and keeping Hendo in midfield as the anchor man there. Especially it's a weird decision putting Genie in there as that anchor man as well, with Hendo at the back.
Yeah.
Especially with the news coming out this week, sort of in the last 2 days, that Genie doesn't want to kind of renew his contract. He's, for all intents and purposes, sounds like he's on his way to Barcelona to Koeman. But again, I mean, he's a consummate professional, so he rarely lets us down. But
he's a good baller.
Yeah, I mean, we had a discussion there during the week, even on the preview show. We were talking about even, if you have these centre backs available, when are they ever going to be ready if you're not going to throw them in? And the talk, even the one thing I mentioned during the week was Fabinho in midfield is a huge loss, even though we're using him at the back and he's been outstanding. But we're really missing him in midfield there to allow those guys to go forward and pull the strings the way they normally do. Even with Thiago going forward today and pulling the strings on the passing, you're still seeing sort of Genie sat back as the anchor man in that kind of Fabinho role, and then you had sort of what's his name? Shaqiri was there as well, but he wasn't as forward attacking as he would normally be in terms of being. There was still a nervousness about having to cover.
He was restricted,
kind of restricted,
And they were saying earlier on the pre-match analysis, they're saying that Henderson and Fabinho have the most they're recycling the most attacks. Every time the ball goes out of the box, they're winning it. And keeping the attack going, and you can definitely see that we're lacking that.
Yeah, I suppose the other shining light on it is that, like, I mean, Trent had a solid enough game anyway, and he needed that after what happened at Southampton, because I'm sure his confidence was shot. So for him, he'll probably say he put in a reasonable shift, although like he lacked a little bit of creativity, and didn't normally put in the balls, to the consistency that he normally would. But I'd say there was words there beforehand to say, look, just be really careful, because these guys will try and smash on the break, and especially down that side. If you have Trent there, who's lacking confidence at the moment, and you also have Henderson as a makeshift centre back on that side as well, you could be easily exposed with the likes of Rashford and those guys. I don't know who's else on that side. Shaw, isn't it? Rashford and Shaw, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, and I mean, you look at Shaw. Like Shaw in the last, say, 2 months has become very much an attacking player as well. You see him, he's getting down the line a lot more. He's a lot more physical. His fitness has come back greatly, and like he's really putting in a lot more chances and stuff like that. So he sort of nearly has for United, he's nearly taken that Trent Alexander-Arnold role, really. You know what I mean, for United. Jack, in terms of the result, how are you feeling about the result? Obviously, still top of the table. Still a lot of inexperience in that team, being in that position and carrying that weight of expectation of the Man United fan base.
Yeah.
How do you see it panning out going forward, especially with the Europa League coming back online and stuff like that?
I don't see us winning it. I do see a top 3 for us. I believe it will be Man City, Liverpool, United, not in that order, but that will be the top 3 anyway. I think Man City with their game in hand will come out and get back to their, what they're used to.
Yeah.
And I think they will get back into gear.
Well, I think Man City really are the big winners in this result today, aren't they, in terms of anyone? Because I spoke about it during the week with the lads, and I was saying a draw doesn't help anyone really, you know what I mean, except Man City when you think about it, because they're coming back to form, they're putting teams away, and they're shooting up the table fairly quickly, And by having those 2 games in hand, we've now opened the door for them to, take the top spot, if you like. And when Man City take the top spot, they don't give it up too easy, let's say, I mean, it'll be interesting to see over the next, say, 4 to 6 weeks, when players now start coming back off injury and Europe kicks back in and stuff like that. I mean, United playing on a Thursday night, they'll be playing catch-up, because they'll end up playing either on the Sunday or playing on the Monday, whereas Liverpool and City playing in the Champions League will probably have games on the Saturday or on the early Sunday, if you like. So it'll be interesting to see.
That game basically may as well not have happened in terms of United and Liverpool, because Man United are still 3 points clear from Liverpool. So like it made no difference really, that draw.
Well, I suppose the only difference it would make is the fact that it's another, say, top 4 or top 6 fixture out of the way, and it means we've played another top 4 or top 6 team. United have played another top 4 or top 6 team. And we haven't lost, although we've opened the gate a little bit for City, both of us, we haven't lost too much ground, really. I mean, obviously, City still have to go and win their games. They're playing Palace, I think it is, this evening, which will be a tough game, because Palace
I think.
Palace
that's 1-0 to City at half-time, I think.
Yeah, John Stones.
Yeah, so that's interesting then. So that means, like, and normally when they get their nose in front, they rarely give it up. But it remains to be seen. I mean, they still have to win their games as well. But history will tell you that they're pretty good at doing that type of thing, So in terms of overall reaction, Dylan, to the match, I mean, how did you? I did a preview show there the other night on the podcast, and I predicted a 1-1 draw, a pessimistic 1-1 draw, whereas the lads were on the other night, they were talking about like 3-1 Liverpool, 3-1 United, 2-1 United, and sort of.
I thought,
but
I was talking earlier, and I thought,
yeah, go ahead.
I thought we'd lose 2-1. Like, I can't lie. Like, I was like set we were gonna lose. Yeah. Not in like like we can't beat them kind of way. It just seems like they kind of have a bit of momentum at the moment.
I think we all expected a goal from one of them.
Either side.
Like we all did. Yeah.
Well, like, especially looking at the United lineup, when you saw Lindelof pop up, like, you're thinking Liverpool's defense doesn't seem too strong. Lindelof at the back, that's not too strong.
To be fair, with the lineup of United with the front, I think Martial on the left, he's not a left winger anymore. He's a striker. You know,
He was
he
not
used
playing
to be
for
a
the
left
middle,
wing.
though.
No, Rashford was up front. From what I saw, I mean, he was offside all the time. He had to be running through there. It was yeah.
Well,
It was
those two boys constantly interchange anyway, you know. And then I tell you what was kind of weird as well. I noticed when Cavani came on, he didn't create a huge impression. Okay, you created a few chances and stuff like that, and Alisson made a few good saves, but Cavani seemed out of the game quite a bit as well.
yeah.
And normally he would have like that positive influence coming off the bench, you know, with the experience he has and stuff like that. And then Greenwood obviously coming in at the end.
Wasn't enough time for him to do anything.
No,
Yeah,
and,
you need
as
to give
usual.
him more time.
No.
yeah. And really for him, it's kind of like bringing him on is nearly, it often feels like it's that token gesture from Ollie, you know, of constantly wanting to show that he's, you know, back in the youth, if you like, you know.
Yeah.
So I suppose our overall view is neither of us sort of came out of it winning in any way today. United stay top, opens the gates for City. And I
A
suppose
poor match.
yeah, and we roll on to the next round of fixtures. And United obviously have to figure out a better game plan against top six, and we just have to figure out a better game plan up front.
It's
Yeah.
just one of them games where it ends, and like you just feel like you're left wanting more with like no goals or anything.
Yeah,
There was so much hype for it, and it was such a disappointing match.
but that's what Sky always do. They hype up these big games. You'll see it even with the Manchester derbies and various other games like that. And you know, they deal with even with the London derbies and stuff like that, and they just become they just let you down because you're pumped up all week. I mean, think about it. The build up to this match started when United beat Burnley, I think it was on Tuesday, and went top of the league, and then Sky are just pumping the narrative constantly, day in, day out, player updates, manager updates,
Predictions.
predictions, showing
Yeah.
history. Everyone is weighing in on this game, and it just gets heightened up. And then, it just becomes that, really. You know what I mean? We played some really nice football, but we just couldn't finish. We couldn't create.
Firmino was very poor.
Yeah,
There was lots of players today that were just missing, it felt.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, absolutely. I think United. United obviously staying top will be happier with the draw, and I think they kind of came. We sort of pushed the narrative in terms of trying to play and make things happen. United pushed the narrative in terms of soaking that up, and then for the last 20 minutes they decided, right, well, we better take the shackles off here and see can we nick a 1-0 or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I suppose in summary, then what we're talking about is not a great day at the office for both teams. Man City are the real big winners in this result, and we roll on to the next round of fixtures. Everyone feel that kind of way about it?
I just feel like every time when it gets towards the end of the match and Liverpool aren't playing too great, and like Klopp starts bringing on like the likes of Origi or like Minamino, I just feel like we're almost laying down and taking it at that stage.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're nearly accepting because
you've lost or something.
Origi, he'll create something twice in a season, really, and
yeah,
you know what I mean, and it's and it hasn't happened even much recently, you know what I mean. But
well, he's definitely not as good as he was like a year.
Yeah, no,
I was terrified when he came on. I was like, oh, this is going to be the game where he scores that special goal that he does this season. Of course, it's going to be against United, and it's going to be the same against us last season. Oh, who was it again? It was
Lallana.
Yeah. Oh, I remember when he came on. I was like, oh, Klopp's lost. He's bringing on Lallana. Like, what's he going to do? And he bangs it in. I'm like, oh.
Isn't that mad? We have a United fan saying he was terrified when Origi came on.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I was actually terrified.
Listen, I can handle Firmino, Salah, and Mane, but when Origi came on, I was terrified. You sound like a Barcelona fan, you know. Well, listen, lads, it's been great catching up with you, and thanks for jumping on for the match reaction. And we'll catch up again real soon.
Yeah.
Cheers, lads.
Look.
Talk to you soon. Thanks.
See you.